But you make a really good point. There's still a business to run, and it's not about, yes, we're a family business, but on the business side of things, the business has to come first. And, if I wasn't, well, certainly if Dad and the other directors didn't feel I was up to be an MD, I would not be MD just because I wanted it. So I don't think, if I wasn't the right person, I wouldn't be in this role, I believe. So there's you have to manage expectations sometimes as well, that they're the right person, even if no matter how much you want it, you might not be the right fit or the right person. But, well, thankfully they thought I was, or hopefully still do.
In today's show, I am delighted to introduce Patrick Woods. Patrick is the managing director of Linwoods Health Foods and the third generation leader of this family-owned business. Succeeding his father, Patrick's role involves building on 60 years of legacy and experience to drive Linwoods to new heights. Embracing the advice to bring your own shoes, Patrick focuses on facilitating and empowering his team to achieve their best while painting a vision for the future. Outside of work, Paddy is married to Laura and a father to Aoife and Rory. He is an avid runner and passionate about GAA. Committed to teamwork, collaboration and personal growth, Patrick leads Linwoods with a positive mindset. We're going to hear more about that today. Ensuring their range of health foods, gluten-free, vegetarian and often organic, supports a healthier lifestyle for all. Patrick is dedicated to providing the best nutritional advice and innovative recipes to help integrate Linwoods products into everyday diets. As ever, I invite you to go and grab a cup of coffee, a notepad and pen, and enjoy the show. Patrick Woods, you're very, very welcome to the ScaleX Insider podcast. Absolutely delighted and thrilled to have you on the show today. It's always brilliant to speak to somebody from our own community.
Yeah, thanks, Brenton. It's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, you're so welcome. Look, you know very intimately our vision. Our vision is to inspire, connect and enable millions of ambitious leaders of small and medium-sized enterprises to scale with purpose. So Paddy, I open the show with this question to all of my guests. Yeah. What does scaling with purpose mean to you?
For me, scaling with purpose is about making a positive difference to the world and making an impact. And, the scaling element of it is trying to help as many people as possible. So whatever industry or whatever business you're in, trying to help as many people as possible in whatever field that you're operating in.
Yeah, look, I love that. It resonates strongly with our own philosophy, our own belief that if you have a wonderful product or service, which you guys do, we're going to get into that today, then you have an obligation to bring this to the world. So staying on purpose for a moment, what is your own purpose? What is the Linwoods purpose? And what is it about that purpose that resonates with your own story? Why is that so meaningful to you?
Yeah, so with Linwoods, we're a health food business. So our purpose is to enhance people's health and well-being, helping them feel great every day through positive nutrition. So we want to help people feel their best. And ultimately, if your health, the old saying, your health's your wealth. And no matter what you've got, if you don't have your health, then you're not going to feel your best and enjoy life. So we're helping people to enjoy their lives through health. And what we want to do then is try and help as many people as possible with our products.
Is there something about your own personal journey that makes that more meaningful than that general statement? And that resonates strongly. I believe that your health is an enabler to everything else. In fact, you and I both couldn't do what we do. Yeah. Lead companies, be parents, be husbands, if we didn't have our health. Yeah. What is it about your own story that makes that so meaningful? Yeah, I suppose
the first thing, it's not just about me. So I'm a third generation leader of the business. And if I take you back to my father's story, he had a heart bypass in 1994. And essentially his doctor told him at that stage, which was a very forward-thinking doctor, you need to look after your diet, you need to look after your exercise, you need to walk every day, you need to stop working 100 hours a week, or you're going to be back here in 5 years' time for another operation. And Dad took that very literally and to heart. And
he did listen. I've met your dad.
He listened. He's now 82. He's still works every single day and is in great health. And it's what a lot of that purpose and that vision has come from him and the values that he has kind of implanted in the business and built the business around. So yes, of course, I want to be healthy and I want to help other people be healthy. And a lot of that comes back to his vision and his lived experience. And I suppose it's my job now as leader of the company to continue that journey. Yes, put my own kind of slant on it, but very much that is core to the business.
There's a number of things in this, and I have met your father. He's an incredible man. He's just, he lights up a room. You never forget meeting John Woods.
Yeah.
A very strong individual. You mentioned you guys, Linwoods is third generation. You've done something very, very few family businesses ever managed to do, which is make it successfully to the third generation. Can you share what you guys have done specifically to make that transition successful?
Yeah. I think the first, and again, Dad deserves and Mum deserve great credit for this, is they had the conversation, and we had it pretty early, probably 10 years ago, around succession. And I think that's possibly something that a lot of maybe founders or first generation leaders maybe avoid doing because they don't want to broach the subject of their own demise or their own exit from the business. But we're all going to exit from our business at some point or another, willingly or otherwise. And Dad had the foresight, along with my mum, to have that conversation and the openness and the willingness to have it, which makes it a lot easier for the next generation coming. If it's me knocking on the door, here, Dad, when are we going to have this conversation about succession, about ownership, about leadership? That's a much more difficult thing to do, whereas they willingly opened the conversation for us. We all had a discussion around it as a family. We discussed and debated the makeup of whether it's shares and ownership and other assets, how that would be divided among us, roles within the business, and what are our expectations. So I had set out, ultimately I'd like to be the MD of the company. And kind of there was that bit of, well, I wonder what Joe, my brother, is he going to be competing with me for this? And through that process, it became apparent, no, he doesn't want to be the MD. He wants to progress, but he doesn't see himself in that role. Okay, that's great then. I don't have to compete with him for that. So I think early communication is such a key component to that. And the previous generation's willingness to have the conversation helped immensely. So from that, then we got a shareholders agreement designed. We have a family constitution, which is not law abiding, but it supposes a set of guidelines for the family and the shareholders of our expectation of how we behave and conduct ourselves to remain shareholders. And then the third part of that whole triangle is then Mum and Dad's will has to align with the shareholder agreement. So that was all set out, and probably in the last 7 or 8 years we knew from then what the lay of the land was going to be at a certain point in time. So
that's a brilliant insight. I want to drill down to those the various components of enabling that successful transition, which you've mentioned, kind of the formalities or the shareholder agreement, the family constitution, and ultimately then that being reflected in the will. Let me come back to the conversation. So your dad's 82 now, 72 years of age. At what age were you at this stage, Paddy?
Probably 27.
27.
26, 27.
So how many siblings?
I have a younger brother, Joe, who's a year younger than me, so he's probably 25, 26, and Ellen's another year younger than that, so say she's 25.
So you've the 3 20-somethings, yourself, Joe, Ellen, sitting down with your mum and dad. Your mum and dad are what, 100% shareholders of the business at this stage?
High 90s, yeah.
And how does that conversation open out? You know, are you all in the living room here? And
it was a series of conversations. So we had a facilitator who came in and hosted that, and it started off with one-to-ones with each of us and kind of getting our expectations and what we hoped and what our dreams and hopes were for the future, and then pulled all of that together, and then we came together and had the open discussion, and even around shares, the divide of the shares. Without disclosing how much, I have more shares than the other two, but that was compensated by other assets. To even equals or fairness is not always equality. So, I'm very committed to the business. And so like Ellen has more assets in other places that she will get as opposed to a higher shareholding. But I actually thought me and Joe shares, there's too much of a distance between them. So I actually suggested we should give Joe more and I get a wee bit less of that, because I just thought that's how it should be. So it was all very amicable and done in a very transparent way. And I think that's the only way to do it. You don't want to be sitting in a solicitor's office getting the will read to you after a parent passing away to find out, oh, he got that or she got this. And kind of that's where I think trouble and so on can start to brew. Or
you said something really profound at the outset, that we're all exiting our business at some point.
Yeah.
And ultimately what I take you to mean by that, there's none of us leaving this planet alive. So whether you plan for it or don't plan for it, you are exiting your business once you exit this planet. So what I'm hearing from you guys is a level of maturity in recognizing that this event is going to happen.
Yeah.
So ultimately, let's have the conversation now.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the role of the facilitator. Was that someone close to the family? Was that somebody you hired in who was completely independent? Tell me the role of the facilitator, because that makes when you say it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Have somebody come in, have one-to-one conversations. Each of the family members express their needs and communicate their needs on a one-to-one basis, and then the facilitator take that away. And so tell me the process there. Were they independent family member? What was?
Yeah, so they're totally independent. They were essentially from one of the legal firms here in Belfast, who we brought in to. I suppose a lot of this is taking advice and learning from other companies and other families who have been through this. So it all started. We initially went to the Family Business Network of Ireland. And we got talking to a gentleman called Vincent Carton of Manor Farms Poultry in Cavan. And he had a shareholders agreement and a family constitution, and he brought Dad down and shared it with him. And, maybe made a recommendation of, we used this person in Belfast to help us with ours. And we essentially followed that model. And similarly now, if someone wanted to come and see Dad about our shareholders agreement or family constitution, he will happily take a few hours or half a day and take people through it. And we don't give it out to people to take home with them, but we'll show them it, we'll share it with them and point them in the right direction. So it's all about kind of sharing that learning and helping other people, because every family will go through this in business. So there's probably a good way of going through it and a bad way. And I think we've done it reasonably well, I think. Yeah,
it sounds like that. And the process of each individual expressing their needs, you expressing your desire to become the MD of this business, was there ever any pressure or obligation on you to do that as the eldest son? Did you feel that obligation?
No.
So if you wanted to go off and travel the world for the next 5 years, that was at your discretion?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose I made that choice reasonably early, leaving school after my A-levels. I decided maybe gap year for university. I'll take a year out and go and work. I want to learn as much as possible from Dad when he's 65 and still working in the business. Now, thankfully, he's still there 18 years later. But I done that and stayed in the business and worked essentially from the bottom up, working in different roles throughout the business. Whereas maybe Joe and Ellen, they travelled for a number of years, spent time in Australia, America, South America. I missed all of it. I didn't do any of that. I forwent that to work and progress within the business. But that's, I think with any choice, there's a trade-off. If you're doing one thing, you're missing out on something else. I stayed at home. I played football. That was probably the main reason that kept me at home initially was sport. Stayed at home, got married, built a house. All of that probably earlier than Joe or Ellen did because they were traveling. But I've never been to Thailand. I've never been to Vietnam. I've never done any of that stuff. So there is a trade-off to what I done. But to me, I thought it was the right thing for me. And yeah, there was never any kind of obligation. There's probably we were probably groomed unknowingly somewhat. I remember Dad coming and saying, do you want to come to the Netherlands to look at a machine? Oh yeah, great, a day out of school to go to the Netherlands to look at this pasteurizer. But unbeknown to me, then I was actually buying the next version 10 years later, managing the installation of that project. And you go, oh, that was interesting. 10 years ago, he brought me as a schoolboy over. Was I being groomed then, or just did I get a day out of school? So no expectation, but certainly we were exposed to it and allowed to then make our own decisions if we wanted to get involved or not.
So it sounds like there's a playbook here for succession within family businesses. Have conversations early.
Yeah.
Engage the services of an independent facilitator.
Yeah.
Allow each family member to express their needs, their desires, their wishes, their wants in respect of various roles, responsibilities, shareholding, what they feel is fair and equitable from their perspective, and then a bringing together of all of the various independent needs and wishes and arriving at something that satisfies the needs of the business, because there's a business happening behind all of this, and ultimately what's happening in the living room here is going to have an impact on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you get this right. It sounds like you guys had a textbook handover, but surely there were challenging moments when the facilitator came back and Joe wants to do this, Patty wants to do this, Ellen wants to do this.
Yeah.
Can you share with us some of the challenges, some of the little bumps along the way?
Of course, there's bumps along the way. There always will be. We were lucky, I suppose, in some respects that we hadn't got massively competing aspirations or expectations within the business. So I don't know. There's probably another whole layer of facilitation needed if there's two siblings, both expect the same thing or both want the same thing, and you can't do both. But you make a really good point. There's still a business to run, and it's not about, yes, we're a family business, but on the business side of things, the business has to come first. And if I wasn't, well, certainly if Dad and the other directors didn't feel I was up to be an MD, I would not be MD just because I wanted it. So I don't think, if I wasn't the right person, I wouldn't be in this role, I believe. So there's you have to manage expectations sometimes as well, that they're the right person, even if no matter how much you want it, you might not be the right fit or the right person. But, well, thankfully they thought I was, or hopefully still do.
So let's just get into that a little bit, because there's a team there.
Yeah.
I've met some of the team. They're an experienced team. Young Patrick's coming through the business here.
Yeah.
And there's people who have been in the business for a long time. Maybe some of them have their eye on the MD role. how did you manage the feeling of, am I getting this because my surname's Woods and there's a level of nepotism here? Or am I really getting this because Dad thinks I'm truly capable of being a leader of this business above all of the others who could potentially throw their hat in the ring?
Yeah.
Can you share with me kind of some of your feeling around that and managing that feeling? Or was there a feeling of, of nepotism? What did you go through in that journey?
Yeah, I would say I felt all those emotions. I would say more so before it happened. In the years leading up to it, where I was essentially MD elect, but I wasn't appointed yet. But the other board members were also part of that initial process. So again, we had a clear understanding of their aspirations within the business, and when none of them expressed an interest in becoming the managing director, so I knew, okay, I'm not stepping on toes. We had actually a joint managing director called Seamus McMahon who was with the business for 20 odd years. He was joint managing director with Dad. He unfortunately in 2019 passed away with leukemia. So he probably would have been the next managing director had he not got sick. So kind of once Seamus passed away and was no longer a part of the business, then I suppose I was the natural heir apparent, if you want. From a personal perspective, I went through all those different emotions. Am I good enough? Am I only getting this because I'm the son of John Woods? But would he put me in there if he didn't think I was right? Would some of the other directors say, here, John, I know Patrick's your son, but I don't think he's up to this, or I believe they would have. I'd like to think they would have if they did feel that way. And I suppose as I progressed, I come around to the feeling of, well, look, Dad has built this business, and hopefully there's a little bit of him in me, and some of that has rubbed off on me. And yes, we could go and get someone else. Am I the best person in the world to run this business? No. We could go and get some superstar from California who knows all about running businesses. But will he know Linwoods as well as I do? Will he know the ins and outs of it? Will he know the values? Will he know the people? And what makes these people tick, and what kind of a culture we've got? So yes, they might be really shit hot at running a business and have MBAs or whatever else, but do they know what makes Linwoods tick? And I suppose when I got to that point, then it was like, well, why not me? And I've got lots of good people around me that guide me and can keep me right, and thankfully they do.
Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about that network that you've surrounded yourself with. Your dad's a phenomenal entrepreneur, a very, very strong character. And what I see typically from second generation, third generation leaders is that they are challenged under the shadow of that strong founding figure. And whilst they may have the designation and the title, actually they don't have the authority, because the team are still glancing at the founder for what is the real direction here. Yeah. And was there a sense of that when you came to the role? And I suppose, was there a fear of failure and effing up? So share with me about the people who were guiding you and kind of coaching you around, and maybe seeding a sense of belief, and that process of stepping out from under the shadows. Yeah, so I'm very lucky that I have a great team. Paddy and Orla, our other two directors, have been there kind of 30 years or touching 30 years, both of them, non-family. And so there's a lot of continuity there in that leadership team. So I'm the young buck stepping up, but there's still dads in the background, and there's Paddy and Orla. There are two rock solid people to guide us and help us along. There probably is still a little bit of
that dynamic of, I would call it healthy tension between Dad and myself. In he has ran the business a certain way for 60 years. So he ran it from he's 20 till he was 80. And there is an element of, this is John Woods' business, and it will probably always be John Woods' business. I'm just the leader of it. And he is a big presence. He's a big personality around the company. And as much, I don't see it necessarily in other people, but I feel it nearly that I, certainly if we're in a meeting, I can feel somewhat overwhelmed by him being in the room or having a differing opinion. And then you get into, well, I have to keep making my point, and that's where things start to go downhill. And that's probably as much my insecurity as, I don't know that any other people still look to me, but I still have that hang up about, oh, well, if he's saying something different to me, well, I need to come out on the right side of this. And normally I don't, or if I do, in a lot of cases, you go back and you look back and go, oh, yeah, he had a point there. And that's maybe some of that's coming from my insecurity even now, 2 years later, but I don't see it as being an issue across the business. It's probably more imagined in my mind than anything.
Yeah, there's this sense of having to get the last word to demonstrate to others in the room that actually,
I'm the boss. Yeah.
That's really honest, really honest and vulnerable of you, Paddy.
And like, even I would add to that, like, we swapped offices. So I got the big office 2 years ago when I succeeded him. And now I want out of the big office because I suppose I don't feel that I need it anymore, but I felt maybe I needed it then, even if it was only symbolic. He had moved down the hall and I was in his office now in the hot seat as such. So maybe that helped at the time, but now I'm kind of like, I don't need this office. I could put 3 people into this office and I'll get a smaller office somewhere else.
That's really interesting. Was there a moment in the last kind of 6 months, 12 months, 24 months where you felt, yeah, I'm truly leading this business?
I would say it's more a journey. It's not, well, I'll come back to our moment, but I would say it's certainly a transitional journey, and you still swing back into, Jesus, what am I doing here? And do I know what I'm doing? But more often than not, I feel like I'm in control, and you have more good days than bad ones, and comfortable in our own skin. And I suppose there's this element, the more as you succeed, you get more confidence and that evidence of success that actually, yeah, I do know what I'm doing. And one of those would be Overnight Oats, which we've launched last November. was kind of a pet project of mine and one other girl in NPD, Honor, who the two of us kind of come up with the idea, and we ran with it. And our biggest battle was to convince Dad that you could eat porridge cold. But that has been really successful over the last kind of 8 or 9 months and continues to grow from strength to strength. So that is probably validation for me that, actually, Dad came up with health foods and milled seeds 20 years ago, and most people said that'll never work, but it did. So he had that in his locker of that evidence of success. Well, look, I made this work, so I'll make the next thing work, and the next thing, and the next thing. So having that bit of success, I suppose, has definitely given me more confidence. But if you were to say one moment where I felt that I was the leader, truly was probably our ScaleX planning day, our first one, which was in maybe May or June of 2022. And I was talking to Dad about all this mad books that I was reading on the ScaleX program, and I want to do things differently, and I want to bring in the team and share our vision with the team. And he ran with it, but he got it that day when he seen me present to 20 of our team in the business. And that's what this is all about. That's what this process and what this approach is all about, is engaging people. And I suppose he said to me afterwards, kind of like, now I see where you're going and where you want to take the business and this approach. So I suppose at that point I realized, okay, I have got this. And yeah, look, does he overstep sometimes? Of course. But he ran it for 60 years. Of course, he still has strong opinions and views. Equally, so do I. And yeah, you just have to work those out. And it's not about, it's a great saying of his, it's not about who's right, it's about what's right and what's right for the business. So, sometimes if he's right, you have to bow and let him run with the project, or kind of accept, he's coming out on the right end of that one because it's right. It's not that just because it's my idea doesn't make it always right.
That is so powerful. It's not about who's right, it's about what's right.
Yeah.
I have this metaphor in my head. I obviously know the process that you're describing very intimately. That day, that workshop in which you come into the business and you're communicating your vision for the future.
Yeah.
And then we take the team through a process to operationalize the vision.
Yeah. To
create that plan. I almost see that as when you describe that, as a handing across of the baton that the founder initially says, you've gone through this process with the facilitator, you've agreed to shareholding, you have the family constitution, the will there is reflecting the respective wishes of everybody, and there's a kind of handing across of the baton, but that the founder still has a firm grasp of the baton and you've a hold of it too. I almost see that day that they release the baton and there's a kind of a sigh of, okay.
There's two aspects to succession in my view. There's the ownership succession, which I think is probably more straightforward. There are numbers on a page. You have X percent, you have this percent, and the other person has the other percent. But the leadership succession is a different, probably less tangible thing to happen. So the ownership succession was agreed and planned and everything, at that time 10 years ago. I knew the leadership succession would happen, but when and how does that look? And so it's a whole different animal. And yeah, it is kind of that handing over of the baton at a point in time. And for us, it was a very gradual transition, and that transition is probably still happening. Where Dad has maybe diminishing responsibility, and I'm assuming more and more responsibility and more leadership, but he's still very much involved. He's still, part of the board, and readily gives his opinion and input into the business and helps shape what the business will look like and what the future of the business is. His primary role now is in innovation and looking at 10 years into the future, which is maybe ironic for an 82-year-old, but that's where he spends most of his time, is looking what's coming down the tracks that Linwoods should be working on for 5 years out. Not what's the innovation we're going to launch next year. It's what's the thing for 3, 5, 10 years out that we need to be aware of. He spends a lot of his time reading and researching that.
I want to come to that.
Yeah.
Before we do, founder syndrome is a syndrome. Mm-hmm. The challenge that founders have of letting go, and we see it now. We've coached scores and scores of leaders through our program, and this fear of letting go is a real fear, and it's quite a sinister one. Mm-hmm. People will disguise it as, well, they're not quite as good as me, they're not quite ready yet, I'll wait till next year when we're doing this project, I'll get that finished, and they create lots of reasons why they shouldn't let go right now.
Yeah.
There's an egoic piece there that will, whilst I'm talk about the business, when the pressures really comes on, then all of a sudden it's mine.
Yeah.
I don't like the decision. We've spoken about it. This is my business. I'll make this decision. You've described a transition there that's organic. Mm-hmm. Has your dad ever shared or been vulnerable with you that he finds this difficult, that, this is his baby in many respects?
Yeah.
He's lived and breathed this for his entire career, and that in some way, he might have said something in a meeting which that has created some friction, but hidden behind that is actually a feeling that I'm letting go here, and this is uncomfortable for me. Has he ever shared anything like that?
Not explicitly, no.
Do you sense it that might be challenging for him in terms of,
I'm sure there are challenging moments and maybe things that I'm doing that, it's not how he would do it. But he's very mature and rational enough to allow me to do that. And, he was telling a story recently about me going to buy 1986 Toyota Corolla twin cam, and nothing would do that I bought this car, and he tried numerous ways to convince me otherwise. Why don't you wait? Why don't you bring a mechanic? Why don't you, I had to get buying it. I bought it. He let me buy it. He stood in the yard. He gave me an extra $1,000 to buy it. It was the worst decision I probably made in a long time, and certainly the worst car or investment that I made. But he didn't say, this is a bad idea, you're not doing it. He let me do it and make the mistake and cost myself a pile of money to fix it up and all the rest. So I think he has that level of probably emotional intelligence to, even if he does feel uncomfortable, and if he's wise enough to step back and maybe not express that or let it go on and play out and see how it happens.
Do you guys have like a safe word in meetings where if things are spilling over and it's starting to get personal from a family perspective, the family dynamic, family dynamics are challenging anyway, never mind then bringing that into a business setting under the glare of lots of others. And I'm a middle child and, one of 5, and and I can even see things playing out in a WhatsApp channel, a family WhatsApp channel where an older brother is trying to kind of get the last word whenever you're trying to propose something else. And in relation to provision of healthcare, for example, for our parents.
Yes. And
I'm just thinking, if that was in a company setting, that could be quite horrible in terms of how that would play out.
Yeah.
Has that happened in the business, and how do you?
Oh yeah, it happens, and it continues to happen, and it's just, again, it's a process of trying to manage that, and probably NPD, certainly for me, new product development. Dad has his ideas of what we should be doing. I have my ideas, and yes, we have the values of the business, but my slant on it might be slightly different to his. And they're probably the meeting that every week these kind of, tension's not the right word, but disagreements or whatever tend to arise. And eventually we sat down and said, look, we have to stop this. And here's what I think. Could I ask you to do these 3 things in the meeting? And he said, well, when we're on that subject, maybe you could do this and this and this, or do less of this, this and this. And so we set out 3 points each that we would try to do.
Can you share with us what those are?
Mine was stop interrupting him.
Okay.
I suppose I adopt an approach of trying to speak last in the meeting, because if the MD says, well, I think we should go with the yellow mug, it's a good idea, everyone else in the meeting go, oh, well, Patrick thinks that, so we'll I think that's a great idea. So I try to speak last, but that approach goes out the window if Dad speaks first, because then people just agree with him. And so I said, like, you have a tendency to dominate meetings with, in terms of how much airtime you spend talking in a meeting of 6 people. If you're talking 60% of the time, the other 5 people are only getting 40% of airtime. And he said, well, you need to if you're chairing the meeting, you need to involve them. I was like, well, I don't get a chance. But so we had this kind of debate. So one of my things was, well, you have to involve the other people in the meeting. And if you don't, well, of course I'm going to step in and try and engage them or involve them somehow. So that was one of my things was, well, stop interrupting him and let him finish. Probably due to my frustration of if I feel he's talking too much, I'll start to interrupt. I need to work in terms of my chairmanship of the meetings to engage people better. And similarly, I asked him, like, Dad's a great storyteller, and sometimes meetings can go in directions which we don't expect. And sometimes a half-hour meeting can become an hour-and-a-half meeting, which maybe it doesn't need to be. And my suppose challenge to him was, can you speak less? And maybe they don't need that story or that analogy or that background information in every meeting. Maybe we could have a quick meeting. So those types of things, just how we kind of interact with each other to try and smooth out those creases.
Yeah, common understanding that this is like the way that we will work for the betterment of the business and everyone around us. I
like efficient meetings. Go through the points, out. Dad's very forensic. And what do you mean by that? And what would happen then if this, and maybe 6 questions later, I'm like, what's the point of, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but that's just the way he likes to do things and I like to do things differently. And it's just understanding that and giving each other space to explore that. And if there's an issue afterwards, then maybe say, like, maybe you could have done that differently, or I'll think about this for the future or whatever. So
you mentioned at the outset, you're leading with your vision now.
Yeah.
And your father has endorsed that. He's supporting you in leading that vision.
Yeah.
But I've known you for quite some time, and even the way you speak about your dad here, you're very respectful of your dad.
Most of the time, yeah. I should be more. But.
And what he brings. And something that I know is very important to you are the values that your dad brings. What have you held on to that your father has embedded within the business that you still uphold?
Yeah, so the values within the business is very simple. Treat everyone with respect is one, and we do our best for our customers and our colleagues. And that's across the whole business, so it's no more fancy than that. And I think if you kind of hold those 2 values, you treat everyone with respect, and you can hold people to, do you think you treated that person with respect, how you spoke to them or how you acted? And we do our best for each other in the business and for our customers. And that applies to our products, to our level of service. And those values come from a very different business where he had a bakery and a dairy business. We had 3 times as many people employed at a point in time as we do now. We have 80 people in our team. We had 260 or nearly touching 300 people at a point in time when we had bakery and dairy. And those values are as true then as they are in this business. And yeah, I strongly believe in those values, that if we do them things. When he was growing up as in rural County Armagh and the troubles began, he seen it as kind of, yes, it's a business, but one of the things he wanted to create was a little refuge of sanity in the middle of this madness that was going on, with people killing each other because of what church they went to or what nationality they I suppose aligned with. And he wanted to create this place where everyone was treated equally. Didn't matter if you were Catholic or Protestant. In the middle of this madness, you had equal opportunities and you were treated the same. And one of his things was no emblems. And to this day, that still applies, that there's no GA jerseys, there's no Northern Ireland soccer tops, Celtic, Rangers. None of that is allowed on company property. We're a completely neutral space. And I think as a country, we've probably evolved to a point where that could be relaxed. I think we're maybe mature enough, or a lot of us are mature enough now, that if we see someone in a Rangers jersey or a GA jersey that we're not going to get overly offended by it or have to make a comment or go and challenge that person about that. But that was part of his thinking when he started this business, that I want to create this space of neutrality and fairness and equalness, where everybody, because we live in a very mixed community in Madden and in County Armagh, and there's people, to this day I worked with from 30 years from all sides of the community. And yeah, that's one of the aspects that is with the values.
Truly scaling with purpose. You must have been challenged over the last 3 weeks to stop people coming in wearing their Armagh jerseys.
Yeah, well, there was, I remember back in 2002, we had a large flour silo at the side of the bakery, and the night before the All-Ireland final, somebody decided to climb up the silo and put an Armagh flag on the top, and it was down the next morning, because what happens on the 12th of July or the next time Rangers win the league, then you have to do the same, or you have to allow the same to be done. So yeah, he takes that very seriously. It's very important.
You mentioned the overnight oats was a runaway success. For those who are listening in North America and Australia, across the globe, the product is phenomenal. I'm a huge advocate of what you guys do. Our fridge is a shrine to all things Linwoods. How big can this business be?
Our 10-year vision is to create a Linwoods community of millions of advocates, and by being thought leader in health and nutrition. And that's to inspire people to live healthier and better lives. So, and that came about from, we sat down with a strategy day and we went to a local forklift manufacturer, Combi Lift, and we used their boardroom. And I organised it because I wanted to inspire my team to go, here's a local business. They're a multi-100 million pound business, global leading manufacturer in Monaghan, 5 mile down the road. This is what we could be. And their sales manager come in and he said, oh yeah, I take your products. I've no idea why, but my PT said I need to be taking your products, so I take them. And that really struck a chord with me to go, if people are advocating for our products, whether if it's only to their partner or their sister or their family, right up to PTs advocating for our product, to doctors, nutritionists, if those people are to advocate our products, that's how we'll grow. So we set about that vision of building this community of millions of advocates and followers. And that's one of our kind of key KPIs that we focus on, is how big is our community and our followers on social media. And yeah, so that's around the advocates, and the vision is millions. We're on 250,000 now, so we've a lot of headspace to grow. And even looking at our health foods and the UK is our main market. We sell in the UK, Ireland, France, Spain and Italy. So 6 markets if you count Northern Ireland as a separate entity. We do for just our accounts purposes. Even in our main market, we have 1% penetration in the retailers. So that means 99% of the population aren't consuming Linwoods products. So yeah, there's a lot of headspace to grow. We're not Coca-Cola. It's 70% penetration, and you're trying to get to 71. We just need to go from 1 to 2, and we've doubled 1 to 3, and we've tripled the business. So.
If you couldn't fail, and you had unlimited resources, where do you see this business?
Helping millions of people's health and wellness. So again, back to our purpose. We want to help enhance as many people as possible with their health. What that might look like, there's a health crisis that we're all aware of. I was looking at statistics. 70% of the US population is obese or overweight. 60% in GB, 52% in Europe. And even while we're starting to live longer, the life expectancy in the Netherlands for a woman is 82. On average, they will acquire chronic illness at 41. So they will live half of their life with a chronic illness. So we're living longer, but we're sick for a lot longer of a big chunk of our life, and we talk about health span or lifespan. And I want to extend people's health span. But and I'm not against pharmaceuticals. Drugs have a place in treating illness for sure. But so does lifestyle, and so does diet and exercise and all of that. So when I talk about the Linwoods community or the Linwoods health movement, I see that as a movement towards using lifestyle as medicine almost. And that already exists in the UK. There's a British Society of Lifestyle Medicine where there's 1,000 GPs are now advocating and prescribing exercise and diet for diabetes or exercise for depression, as opposed to here's a pill or a box of pills. So there's a movement, there's a start of something there where actually these are, at the minute we're using pharmaceutical solutions to treat a lifestyle problem. And these things can be treated with lifestyle change, most of them, or they can certainly help. And there's no point treating people for something and then just sending them back to the same conditions, the same diet, the same exercise routine as they had before, because they're going to be back in a few years' time with the same condition again. They have to change their lifestyle, and it's not a phase, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change that people require. So being at the forefront of that's where I would see Linwoods having a role to play with nutrition and helping people there.
How do you stay relevant with a traditional product amongst all of the noise out there? You know, there's a new biohack every day to reduce weight, to help us live longer, to sort out our sleep, to make us perform better. How do you navigate through all of that and continue to stay relevant?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of elements. Your product must do what it says it does. So you get repeat customers. You know, if people take our flaxseed and after a month they feel better in themselves, well, they're going to continue to take it. If you take something and you feel no difference, well, then you're more likely to drop off. So you must be solving a need for people. And the second one, yes, there's a lot of noise out there. And I think it's our role as in terms of innovation and NPD to sift through that and discern what's a fad, what's a trend, and what's a sustainable trend. And we want to create products in this space over here where it's sustainable. It's going to be 10 years legs in this product, not a 6 months flash in the pan and then it's gone because it goes out of fashion.
And what are some of the things happening over here in that category of sustainable trends?
Well, probably protein is probably the biggest one of the last 10 years, which, you know, everybody's aware of that, the protein mega trend. And we didn't really jump on that because it's not our thing. People in Western world already get too much protein. I would say fiber is being a massive one, which is directly linked with gut health. I think, yeah, fiber, gut health, digest, because a lot of our health originates from the gut and our microbiome. So trying to help people in that space is a sustainable trend I see for the next 5 to 6 years. Heart health. I suppose we sat down and we looked at what are the biggest conditions out there that are impacting people.
Well, heart disease number one.
Heart disease, cancers. It's a different area in terms of, well, we're not at a point where we go, actually, you could reverse cancer with food. There's studies which say, it might help in some cases, but we're nowhere near a point where I could feasibly stand up and say, here, take this product and you'll be able to avoid or reverse or you know, even, well, not cure cancer. So cancer's a big one, but we're nowhere near that point where food lifestyle will help, of course, but having a product that I could stand over is a long way away. So it's looking at the areas that we can play in. How, you know, heart health is one. We have, you know, flaxseed can help manage and maintain cholesterol levels.
Yep, my porridge every morning.
oats as well, beta glucan within the oats, the gut health piece with our fiber and soluble fiber, and diversity within the diet to help the microbiome is another one that we're looking at. And then kind of appetite control and satiety, this obesity thing. And we see, like I read, 12% of the US population have taken or are taking Ozempic and Wegovy for weight loss. And essentially they take it until they can't stomach it any longer, because it's quite harsh on the digestive system. So is there something there we could do naturally to help people in that respect? So there's lots of different areas, but you look at the biggest challenges to health and go, can we help people in those spaces?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was out with a senior leader of a big pharma company recently, and they were rubbing their hands at the prospect of the fallout from Ozempic, because they have actually a drug that helps mitigate some of the side effects from Ozempic. So
yeah.
It's refreshing and comforting to hear that actually, nourishing your body with natural foods that are unprocessed or as close to their natural source as possible actually is ultimately the main beneficiary here for helping our health. It's not. What I'm hearing from you. There aren't these kind of get healthy quick.
No,
pills.
There's no shortcut. I seen it was a conference in Switzerland earlier in the year, and the lady presented this Dutch study about health span and lifespan, and one of her slides said it's not a diet, it's not a phase, this is a lifestyle change. And I said, okay, there's no hack, there's no easy way to do this. If you're gonna do it naturally, it's you change your lifestyle. You don't do it for a month or a week or take this tablet. It has to be all encompassing, and it's a long-term thing, and it has to be sustainable.
Get your flaxseed, folks. You mentioned earlier in the conversation the workshop that was hosted by the team at Simple Scaling through the ScaleX Accelerator program.
Yeah.
Again, full disclosure, and I love the fact that we have this platform to share real stories, real people who have gone through the process and are on the journey of scaling with purpose. How would you describe the Patrick Woods now versus the Patrick Woods who came into the program? What have been the changes?
I would say it's transformational on a personal level, but probably also on a business level. I would say I was probably quite unsure of myself, maybe lacking in confidence, and I knew I wanted to change how things were done. I knew that much. I was taking on the leadership role, but I had no structure or framework or language, or literature I just knew I wanted to do it differently. And going on the program equipped me with all of those, a framework. Oh, actually, that's what I want to change. I want to change the leadership style. And I knew how to do it differently, but actually it's intent-based leadership. That's actually what I want. And I suppose it's given me a confidence to go and lead the business and take it on and try and, make it my own, but at the same time, we still have, it's back to this piece of, if you want to go fast, go alone. It's a major part is to bring people along with me. And yes, I could implement a lot more changes, but I might lose some of even our senior team along the way if I push too quickly. So I'd rather have them people with me and go a bit slower than throw everything out and throw everything up in the air as such. So yeah, I think it's equipped me with that framework, that confidence, and the structure to lead and start to build the business that I want it to be. And don't get me wrong, Dad had built a fantastic business. It's my task now to take it and make it even better.
And how are you seeing what you're now implementing manifest within the business?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of growth, which is great. We're seeing the team taking ownership of certain things. I was recently in hospital with my son, who was in hospital for a week. I never got one phone call. So either they don't need me, or they're all empowered to just get on with the job and run the business in my absence. So that kind of ownership, one of the things that I wanted to introduce, and it's a work in progress, and we're not as transparent as I would like to be with everyone, but we're more transparent than we were, was just that sharing the plan with the whole team, sharing our vision with the whole team. Oh, what if we tell one of our competitors down the road, if somebody, what if they get wind of it? Well, so what? It's more important that our team know where we're going as a business than, I don't care what Jimmy in the pub thinks of Patrick Woods' vision. It doesn't matter to me. And there was that kind of maybe more traditional mindset of just keep all the information tight within the leadership team. Don't share anything. Don't tell them turnover figures. Don't tell them kind of any of that. And I think to build trust, you have to be transparent, and you have to lend trust first in order to get trust back. So that's probably one of the major things that I would say, and learning around David Marquet's book of Turn the Ship Around and intent-based leadership and lending that trust. That structure and that framework. When I read that book, I went, that's what I want to do. That's how I want to run the business. Because I realized I don't have all the answers. Maybe the way Dad had, I can't be that guy, and I have to do it my way. So having the confidence to do it my own way then is probably one of the major things that come out of the program.
I'm going to pivot slightly before we move into the close. You mentioned again at the outset, you're from a small community, a very strong community in Armagh, Madden, that was hit with a tragedy last year when three very impactful figures of that community were killed tragically in a car accident. And I know that hit you deeply.
Yeah.
How important is community to you, is family to you? I mean, you're a very, very successful business leader now. You're very, very well known throughout Northern Ireland and beyond. Your company's very well known, given the third generation that it's been in existence.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what's important to you.
Yeah, I suppose Madden, there's nowhere in the world I'd rather live than Madden. That probably sums it up. Now, you get fed up with the weather and go, oh, geez, Italy would be nice, wouldn't it? But I think genuinely I can't see myself living long term anywhere else, because these are my people and my community, and I'm very much rooted in Madden. I grew up, went to the local school, played football, and the beauty of in Madden, the GAA is very strong, and the beauty of the GAA is that I played my whole career with guys that I went to primary school with. And you're not floating about, oh, I'll go and play for this team because they're more successful. So I went through the good days, the bad days, won one or two things, and winning with my best mates was incredible. And now I'm raising my family, and fortunate enough to raise my family in that community. And yeah, it's just, I have an immense amount of pride within the community. And just, I'm so proud to be from Madden, and it's a great place to be rearing kids and be part of. And I think that shone through last year, and even before that, there was a good friend of mine. His father passed away in September, and the whole community rallied around their family. And he was when he was younger and more able, he was very much involved in the football club. And the whole community rallied around the Morgans. So then, unfortunately, my own mother passed away last October, and I got it in return, when the club rallied around us and supported us, and the whole community. I'm talking a lot about the club, but the whole community come together and both sides, on neighbours and friends. And then kind of when the accident happened and the tragedy struck with the Grimley and McAvanna families, that was on a different level. Both my mom and Brian Morgan were older and still shocked to the Woods and the Morgan families, but this was a complete scene of devastation within these families, young families losing parents. And the way that the community rallied together, I've never been as proud to be from Madden as during those really dark days in early November last year. It was incredible. And as a club, we were organising stewards and parking and bus services to the wakes to accommodate the crowds. And I need people from 2 to 6. And the guys would leave at 6 to be back at 7 going, I just want to come and help out more. It was a military operation almost over that week. And people just, because we're so tight and we're so kind of close as a community, people all just rallied together and made it happen. So yeah, it was a very difficult time, but I'm so incredibly proud to be a part of that community.
What have you done to practically develop a level of resilience to buffer the challenges of life, the challenges of business?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I suppose resilience is something it's critically important in my view. And probably there's the older generation just kind of a stiff upper lip and you get on with it, and I don't know how they deal with it in their own time when they're alone. Like when I was younger, I say in my late 20s, Linwoods went through a transition and a transformation, and we transitioned out of the bakery and dairy industry into, I suppose we exited the bakery and dairy industry to focus on health foods. And that was tough because we ended up having to lay off about 180 people, which was very difficult for a business rooted in the community. And a lot of those guys and girls worked for 30, 40 years. Some of them never worked anywhere else, only for John Woods. And here we were, we had to make them redundant. And during that time, I suffered with alopecia and my hair fell out. And yes, it's stressful for me. I'm sure it was stressful for those people too that were actually losing their jobs. So over time, you build up that level of resilience. And for me, exercise is critically important in that, and having to look after my own health. And, part of the program, the psyche, is probably, I'm a big fan of the first 2 or 3 stages, the psyche, the purpose and vision, the planning. That's what really excites. I don't really care for the process or the operational side of it. That's someone else is much better at looking after that end of it than me. But yeah, I exercise a lot and I run a lot. If I feel I need some headspace, maybe I'll walk. I normally walk for my head or run for if I feel my body needs it. And yeah, even some of the Wim Hof, the breathing, I don't do it all the time, but even if it's a quick 3 or 4 breaths to calm myself, just having that in the toolkit can, help in the lead into a meeting or, going to do a presentation or whatever. And yeah, just being, I think that level of resilience I've built over time, and it has given me a more capacity to handle stress or handle kind of discomfort.
Yeah. You'll be pleased to know that actually this episode will follow the episode that has been released in this health and wellbeing season. I've just interviewed Wim, and alongside the flaxseed, Wim advocates the breath practice, the cold exposure, which supports a healthy and robust mindset.
Yeah,
you've been really honest and really vulnerable for such a young guy. You've articulated yourself with such wonderful humility and clarity, and an incredible amount of wisdom that's been shared in the last hour.
Thank you.
Can you share with our audience, I have a closing tradition which you'll be familiar with, in relation to this question. Share with our audience 3 timeless takeaways.
Yeah. I thought about this, and some of them are business orientated and some are maybe more personal. But I think firstly, customers buy solutions. They don't care for products, or, in a lot of cases, they want a solution to a problem that they have. So that's the first thing is find a problem and then create a solution to it, and not just trying to create a product for the sake of creating a product. The second one is about having a growth mindset and the power of yet. And this is something I've found really powerful. I'm not good at public speaking. And if you add the yet on, or I couldn't do a podcast yet, but here we are. So that we're not fixed. We can grow and develop and get better. And it was actually a guy, Ben Francis from Gymshark. I remember watching a video of him, and he was saying this, 3 years ago. He goes, 5 years ago, I couldn't stand in front of a camera, and yet here I am. And it's just, you have to push yourself to do these things and grow. And that leads on nicely to the third one, which is be comfortable being uncomfortable and doing uncomfortable things. That's where growth happens. So yeah, those are some of the things that I practice, and you don't grow being comfortable. So
yeah, love that. Nothing grows in the comfort zone.
No.
For people who want to find out a little bit more about Linwoods, Paddy, where best to connect with you and find out more about the company and your vision for the future? Yeah,
it's on LinkedIn. It's probably the best place to get me is Patrick Woods on LinkedIn, and the Linwoods website of linwoodshealthfoods.com. You can find out, well, it's a work in progress still, but in terms of the corporate side of it and telling our story, probably the way I would like it, but we're getting there. So yeah, you can find me there.
And look, what's next for you?
Yeah, from on a personal level, I am running the Dublin Marathon now in October, so I'm building up my training towards that. And unfortunately, my son needs an operation in the meantime, so that will take priority over the next month or 6 weeks. And beyond that, then it's full steam ahead with Linwoods to scale and develop it as much as we can.
Look, I have really, really enjoyed the last hour. You've just given a masterclass in family business succession. There will be a lot of people who will replay this more than once, I suspect, to get your playbook. It's really wonderful. I wish you every success with everything you're doing. Importantly, I wish Rory every success in the coming weeks with the operation. But Paddy, look, thanks for showing up today the way you've done. It's been an absolute privilege to host you today.
Thanks, Brenton. I really appreciate the invite. So thank you.